We'll start to record. Okay. Yeah, so we have a minute left to start. So I think people are more and more coming up right now. Yeah, for the information, this webinar is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel. Whoever wants to see it after for reference, reasons, and whatever. So now we are starting now. I will want to thank you one more time for coming up and turning up for this second series of our African Big Academy that has started since 2022. We finished the first series last year in October somewhere. Where we always had our technical director from Axiom Genetics. This time around, we decided for this second series to be a little bit more diversified, with more inclusion from for diversity for diverse fields that are converging to this sector. So this second series will have very diversified topics in terms of animal genetics, in terms of piggery economics. We're talking about piggery infrastructure, and of course, one of the most important topics is piggery nutrition. We're going to treat various subjects that problematize many farmers, many big business owners, And yeah, we hope at the end we all learn together as we proceed. So without wasting more time, I would like to introduce our speaker of today and the person of I say Prof, Professor Aki ADESHEINWA. Many of us might know him, and for those who do not, he's a very active person in the pig sector in the African market. In fact, he's a registered animal scientist in Nigeria, and of course, he's listed on the registry of certified animal scientists and technologists in the United Kingdom. He has over 30 years of academic and research experience in animal science and livestock production systems. Definitely, he's a farmer. A fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Animal Science and member of the governing body, council. He is currently the first vice president of the council and secretary to the body for this. I will advise that we mute ourselves. Please mute us. Please mute. Can you please mute yourself, please?
I don't actually think the person is aware. Maybe they are not muted.
Yeah, they should mute themselves. Yeah, okay. So he's a fellow of the Nigerian Science Association Nigeria, a fellow of the Nigerian Society for Animal Production. I can say more and more and more and more and more. He is today with us to share part of his wealth of knowledge in the African animal science, especially in the piggery sector. And we are happy to have him with us today. And I want us to give a round of applause for Prof. Prof, please, the floor is yours to start your presentation, sir.
Oh,
so I will stop sharing.
Okay.
So that you can share. Okay?
Yeah.
So please share your screen.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Tomio.
We can't see your screen yet.
Today, on this platform. It's a privilege to be on this platform and having been invited to speak on pig farming in Africa, realities, opportunities, and challenges. I'm an African myself. I believe that is well known. And in the pig sector is one area that we have not harnessed the resources sufficiently enough. I'm based in Nigeria. I work at the Institute of Agricultural Research and Training, Obafemi Awolowo University in Ibadan, Nigeria. I will want us to please go with me as I run through the slide. And I believe we have tried to put certain things in check because at the beginning it was a bit of challenge with the with the system because the video wasn't showing. And when we look at the global relevance of pigs, it's widely known, widely consumed meat in the world, accounting for 36% of the global meat consumption. But even when it has established itself in the stable as a stable source of animal protein in Africa, it's not the first choice of meat. Its output is greater than that of the cattle, buffalo, sheep, and goat, all put together. Ever since the 70s, it has witnessed, excuse me, it has witnessed a growth in the production. And as of 2022, we have over 110 million metric tons produced per year, which is highly significant, and for which I believe when we go through with me, we'll see that Africans, we have not actually harnessed or tapped from this resource. It's essential for food security with respect to African household. Is a security against risk associated with highly vulnerable Africa rain-fed agriculture. It's a source of income for a large proportion of poor agriculture in Nigeria. We don't see it as a business. So, but it has also created diversification and resilience for farmers as an alternate source of income. But it's also one area that is significant when we look at it. And when I personally look at it as a professional in the field of animal science, there is a lot of agro-industrial byproducts, which with the acronym AIBP here, significant of them all is cassava peel. For instance, in Nigeria, cassava peel is known to be a huge waste in Nigeria before now. Nigeria is known to be the highest producer of cassava. So the peel constituting a nuisance, but over time, there has been an issue based on the technology brought about by ILRI, International Livestock Research Institute, which has brought about an innovation with the processing of the cassava peel to form high-quality cassava peel, which has, to a very large extent in the ration of pigs, it's able to replace more than 30 to 45%. Looking at pig production in Africa, it's seen as a means of livelihood for Africans, but when you spread it across the regions, you will notice that it is not equally produced in all the regions. And the more than 70% of the pig population in Africa is found in the rural communities. Mainly the semi-intensive system of production is what is widely embraced. And sometimes this could also bring about, because of the way the local people will still look at it, even when they provide the housing, they also try to provide household waste apart from this agro-industrial byproduct. Pigs are widely distributed all over Africa, as we'll be seeing later, but sparsely distributed in the northern part of Africa. Very few modern large-scale farms employ improved techniques or technologies for housing, feeding, breeding, processing, and other production activities. Of significant note is that of South Africa. That is the Southern Africa, I mean, that is putting the entirety of that region together, there are more large-scale farms in the Southern Africa than you find in most other parts of Africa. Nigeria and Malawi tops the list when you look at the production numbers. Both countries have more than 7 million heads of pigs. And then based on the systems of production, particularly in the local areas, there are local breeds that are known to be part of the system. For instance, you see the local cold-bred pig of South Africa, you see the Winstead of Zimbabwe, we have the Nigerian indigenous pig, and we have the Ashanti Doa pig of Ghana. But basically, aside this, there is the exotic breed of pigs that is used for production. When you look at Africa as a continent, you have over up to 38, if not more, of the production of pigs being located in Eastern Africa, followed by the western part of Africa where Nigeria is. In the eastern part, we have Malawi dominating the lead there. And when you look at the Central Africa, it has 17%, then Southern Africa having 12%. But in the northern part, it's as good as nothing is. You can also see this trend when you look at from 1961 to 2021, from this graph that is before us, you will see that over the years, from 1961, the trend with respect to Eastern Africa, Western Africa, the Central Africa, which is classified as Middle Africa here, those three regions have increased tremendously. But when you look at what is happening in Southern Africa, even though you have more of the modern pig production taking place in that zone, it has not significantly appreciated in terms of the production in numbers. Looking at this, and what's off is Northern Africa. This map will also show you when you see the red, that's where you have more than 5 million pigs, and that's Nigeria and Malawi standing out on the entirety of the graph there. And where you have the green, all the greens there, you see you have some in Western Africa, you also see in Central Africa, and more in the Southern Africa, showing the scale of, in terms of the number. But when you look at the number vis-a-vis the production, its utilization as meat product, which is now pork. The total population, production of pork in Africa, as of 2021 was over 2 million tons. And West Africa dominates that, the contribution of West Africa, Nigeria dominates the contribution of West Africa, having as much as 65% of what West Africa is bringing to that number. The Southern Africa has the highest pork yield per animal. This is looking at the productivity. It's looking at South Africa using more of improved breeds and embracing more of the improved system of production. But in terms of numbers, no. You will give that to East and Western Africa. This trend, with respect to what was seen in terms of the pig population, when you look at the pork production in tonnage in the different regions, you will see the appreciable number between, when you look at that of Western Africa, you will see an increase of 1,696% over and above what it was in 1961, followed by Eastern Africa. Then you see follow at the third on that bar chart there, you see it's the Southern Africa. Then Central Africa with none, almost zero, which is even a negative. That is, it has reduced in the Northern Africa. When you look at the countries that are actually dominating the over 2 million tons, you see Nigeria topping the list, followed by South Africa, Malawi, Angola, Uganda, then Mozambique. But when you look at it regional-wise, you will see Western Africa, that's on figure 6. You see Western Africa, followed by Eastern Africa, then Southern Africa, before the middle of Africa. That's talking of Central Africa. The 4 zones have increased their pork production between 1961 and 2021, as reported by FAO. But when you look at the pig meat yield, that is the pork yield per animal, which is a function of the production system, you will see that bringing to the table more than 80 kg per animal slaughtered, as against when you talk about Africa, even with what Africa and Eastern Africa, as well as the Middle Africa, is bringing to the table, is it has actually brought down the contribution of Africa to the global pig meat yield. Pork, like I said earlier on, which I said is not the most consumed meat in Africa. Pork per capita consumption in Africa is just 1.5 kg compared to 14.35 kg in Asia, and then 3.79 in Europe. Hardly will there be any meal served in various parts of Europe that will not contain pork products, as when you compare it to Nigeria. The per capita consumption of pork in Africa ranks after poultry. See, poultry bringing 6.3, followed by beef. This is showing that the most consumed meat in Africa is actually poultry, followed by beef, then chicken and mutton put together, before you now have pork. So, but in Africa, South Africa has the per capita, has the highest per capita consumption compared to the other zones. When you now look at the pig production in terms of the regions, unlike all the other parts, it's important to note that in the Northern Africa, it's not as if pig production has never existed or is not in existence at all. Unlike in other regions, pig production is a rare activity. It's largely due to social, cultural, and religious bias. But in Morocco, as well as Tunisia, pig production is also embraced. Why? In spite of the religious prohibition and social, cultural issues, because the industry, because they are to cater for the needs of the visiting tourists and foreigners resident in the country, it has been one area that a country like Morocco delved into when there was the bird flu. After the bird flu, a couple of farmers left the poultry and went into pig production as a business. In Egypt, the pig production is practiced by the Coptic Christians, who form a small minority in Egypt. And over time, later when we go into the details, we will see what has happened in Egypt in 2019. Pig production in Egypt was growing until some parts of the population were reported to have to be called to prevent outbreak of H1N1 influenza, despite the fact that the virus was not found in pigs. So currently, the total pig population in Northern Africa is estimated at just 28,914 heads, contributing just less than 1% to the pig population in Africa. And when you look at it in terms of pig meat production, it has just a tonnage of less than 2,000 tons. And the per capita meat consumption is less than 1 kg, which makes Northern Africa ranking all other regions. Countries like Libya, Western Sahara, and then Sudan contributes little or nothing. When you look at the figure here, majorly, Egypt is still contributing of the total number of that 28,914 number of pig heads. We have Egypt bringing to the table there 38%, followed by Morocco and Tunisia. But like I said earlier on, this is actually to cater for the tourists and the visiting foreigners. Here we can also see what it has been. But why is this graph very important? It will be noticed that there was a time when the production for each of these countries, like Egypt, went up and then came back. Same goes for Morocco. It's only for Tunisia and Algeria that has maintained almost the same level, that has not increased appreciably. When you now look at pig production in Southern Africa in comparison to that in the north, Southern Africa is one of the leading regions in the pig production in Africa, with over 80% of the farmers using traditional production method, while some employ the intensive system. The pig production system range from large commercial farms, which I mentioned earlier on, with advanced genetics, to smallholder farmers, which informed why I showed the local pigs that is available in Zimbabwe, as well as in South Africa itself. So in Namibia, indigenous pig make over 50% of the total pig population, which are mainly found in communal areas of northern Namibia. The earlier two breeds I showed the picture, actually you can find whether in South Africa or in Zimbabwe, and it's highly favored when you look at the traditional system. But when you talk of pig breeding industry in South Africa, it's a well-established industry which facilitates export to other African countries and is driven by growing demand for pork and its products. When you look at the countries that are actually contributing to the Southern Africa production number of 1.5 million, you will see that 88, if not 89% of the number is coming from only South Africa. And the other countries, even when you look at Botswana, Lesotho, Namibia, and Swaziland, contributing so significantly lower numbers. So a country of record within that zone is just South Africa. And when you look at the trend, when you look at this particular graph, so the entirety of the number that is contributed into Africa pig head population is actually by South Africa, while the other countries, their production is insignificant. Then looking at another region, that is the Eastern Africa, with approximately 17.6 million heads of pigs. The leading country there is Malawi, followed by Uganda, Madagascar, Rwanda, Zambia, and Burundi. Important source of animal protein wealth, job opportunities in Eastern Africa, particularly benefiting rural farmers. The rural pig population is characterized. We know all those things that we know about extensive system of production. That's what obtains for rural pig population in Eastern Africa. And when you look at that number of 17.6 million, you will see that Malawi contributing 39.7% of that population, followed by countries like Uganda, then others like Madagascar, then Zambia. But these are quite lower compared to what Malawi is bringing to that number. When you look at the graph showing the contribution in terms of pig meat production, you will also notice that Malawi is contributing significantly, as well as Uganda, Mozambique, while countries like Zambia, Kenya, Madagascar, Rwanda, Burundi, they are down the line. Even when you have what we need to, I need to speak to here, even when you have some countries producing high number, sometimes it is not it is also not indicative of whether the production are pork consumption or pork production, unless they embrace improved pig production practices or that they embrace the use of exotic breeds. But when you look at the picture in in Western Africa, just like South Africa dominates the population of pig in Southern Africa, same happens when you look at the figure for Western Africa, where you see Nigeria contributing 52% of the 15.7 million heads of pigs. Then you see the contribution of Burkina Faso, 17%, while others are contributing less than 10%, even though there are other countries that are also there. But significantly, Nigeria has more than 8 million. This is according to FAO stat 2021. With the recent estimates, you see Nigeria contributing, bringing to that particular number as huge as more than 10 million heads of pigs. Now, when you look at the pork production, Nigeria still dominates. Looking at the trend from 1961 to 2020, for instance, you see 302,000 metric tons of pork being produced by Nigeria, while all the other countries within the West African coast not moving any close at all. The closest is Burkina Faso, which is also ranking after Nigeria in terms of the pig population. Now, when you look at Central Africa with countries like Angola. Angola actually is the key country of focus in Central Africa, producing almost half of the total pig population in that region. The other notable pig producing countries are Central Africa. In Central Africa is Cameroon, Central African Republic, DR Congo, and Chad. Even in spite of religious and social-cultural problems. Pig production system in Central Africa is similar to what obtains in other regions in Africa. And when you look at the distribution of the number there, they have as much as 8.1 million. And looking at the production pattern, you see Angola producing almost 45% of that number, followed by Cameroon. That's about 24%. And then Central African Republic producing 13%, while DR Congo has a 12% contribution. The others, they are less than 5%. Looking at the pork production now, you see Angola topping, but that is bringing not less than 100,000 tons of pork to the total number of pork produced by Central Africa. While you see countries like DR Congo, Cameroon, Central African Republic, and then, in fact, Equatorial Guinea is contributing next to nothing, despite the fact that they are pig heads. Now, what has been some of the challenges, even aside the fact that we have social-cultural problem as well as the religious problems? Almost 25% of the global pig population died as a result of ASF between 2018 and 2019. Africa was not spared. You see the map of Africa there showing countries that were ravaged with respect to different years of that disease. What is our major problem? Our major problem is most of the time we practice pig production practice, apart from happening in the rural areas, that it is also the farmers are clustered. You see the picture in figure 8 is like a pig village where you have several thousands of farmers, but their production practices are different. So whatever affects one affects the other. So there is no insufficient biosecurity measures. Look at a situation in figure 9. When there was the attack of African swine fever, look at the shallow burial site. So definitely what should be done, which is not done, will cause more havoc, even to the others that were not affected. And in figure 10, what that is showing is taking Nigeria as a country of reference. Is at a particular time when ASF came into Nigeria, it actually came from Benin, that is Benin Republic. And the probable spread route is indicated by the arrows that you are seeing there. And that is because no biosecurity, all the precautionary measures that should be taken into consideration were not done. And by so doing, it spread all around the country, right from something that came in from another country, spreading through the southwest, up to the southeast, to the south-south, from the south-south to the middle belt of Nigeria, and then going to the far north because of the trade routes. There is in the northern part of the northwestern part of Nigeria is one location there, that's Kafanchan, which has the largest pig market in West Africa. Every Thursday of every year, pigs are sold there. And not less than 5,000 heads of pigs are sold. So you will see the movement of pigs. The moment they are infected with any disease, it goes up there, and then it's one structure. We've taken time in Nigeria to study also the market structure. When you look at figure 11, you see the market channel. Using the case study in Nigeria as an example, when you look at that, the sales structure particularly, you will see that the producer is having 50, When you go down to rural and urban consumer, you still see the 100% ending with the rural and urban consumer. But look at the movement. It goes from the producer to the rural assembler. That's a form of set of middlemen. What is going to the middleman there is 36% of that number. Then going to urban wholesaler, 16%. Then to the retailer, 40% of that number. The actual number that will follow that route to the consumer is 60%, which is 30 at the end of the day. But when you see what should have been the proper structure, you see there is you see minor channels, you see major channels. The minor channel is bringing to the end point, which is the consumer, only 6%. But from the producer to the retailer, it's only bringing 20%. When the pig, 24% moves from the producer to the urban wholesaler, 34% of that still goes to the rural, then goes to the consumer. At the end of the day, the 100% of the 50 produced by the farmer still gets to the, but you can see how it's fragmented. So actually the gain is not going to the producer, but to the middleman. That is the import of this particular, and you can see what the pig market within improper infrastructure. You see what it's like. The animals are tied to one another and just there on that's the kind of practice that was seen on that farm. So, on that market, opportunities that are available. It is believed that population growth, almost 90% of the expected world population by 2100, as against we are in 2025 now, we live in less developed regions, such as we have in Africa. So Nigeria, Congo, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Egypt are 5 of the 9 countries of the world projected to contribute more than half of the population growth, meaning there will be increased urbanization. So increased urban population resulting from rural-urban migration now will bring about an increase in the standard of living of the inhabitants, which is now related to increased demand for animal products, because there is more money in the pocket. Now, the person that is not able to afford animal protein before will be able to. Then there is reduction in the rural farming population, thereby creating need for growth and development of large-scale modern farm to meet demand for pork and its product. So growth of support services. Growth of support services in the industry, like the feed, the drug along the value chain to support emerging modern large-scale production is expected. Taking into consideration of this, you see there is need, there will be need for a developed market structure locally and internationally to facilitate exports. So which will bring about international market, thereby bringing in more money to the producer. Then can also immensely contribute to increase per capita income of this particular continent as a whole. So there is need for the development of the big value chain through enduring policies and programs for sustainable development of the industry. So by enhancing its potential to provide quality meat, it will definitely help the African continent to achieve food security for the continent at an affordable rate. Now, majorly, you look at the challenges as inconsistent policies and programs within the African and across African continent. Why? Because a political leader is there today there is a policy favoring a particular production or a particular form of trade, but over time, which I will look at as policy somersault, and that sometimes it's not attractive to investors. This is a challenge. Limited access to quality breeding stock, which I spoke to earlier on, that most of the production practices, farmers use the local breed as against the exotic breed. There is inadequate infrastructural facility, water, good road, light, processing facility, high and unstable cost of inputs such as feed and drugs, limited veterinary services, underdeveloped value chains, and involvement of middlemen as seen in the market structure. Then when you look at the disease, the infection, talking about ASF, which up till date, no vaccine is reputable enough to say it will be able to. There is also the lack of technical knowledge and skills on the part of the producers. Rapid urbanization resulting in conflict between expansion of farm and residential estates. Poor level of education among farmers also is a factor. Hostility against pig production as a result of religious and socio-cultural belief against consumption of pork and other pig products. Environmental concerns and climate change, poor record keeping, which is a very big and a huge problem. These are major challenges. If only tackled, we'll be able to move. So pointers to a better future. Excuse me. When there is government intervention through importation of exotic breeds or semen for easy access to improved genetics by resource-poor farmers, then sure, there can be growth, or there will be growth. Then when you see the growing demand for pork and its product, for instance, I mentioned earlier on, looking at Nigeria, what is expected in the years to come, the population growth will favor Nigeria, Malawi, and some other countries. Enhanced capacity of pig farmers also in the African countries is also a pointer in a brighter for a brighter future. Support for development in improved pig markets, e.g. in Kenya, it's also a pointer in the right direction. Gradual shifts to modern pig housing facility and designs and improved management of pigs, which later I will show some of this. When you see, this is actually, when you look at plate 2, this is actually taking place some few months back in Congo, in some areas. So meaning Africa is gradually embracing improved pig production. Definitely with this was being laid to accommodate this structure in plate 3, which will invariably improve the production practices, thereby increasing the number and making it more affordable. These are some of the facilities that are in place in Congo now, as against the way the pigs were produced before. This is also going on in this is also in place in Ghana. For instance, you see these are winners, and this particular facility is in Ghana. So there are efforts being made to introduce. So also in Nigeria, this location of these structures are also in some places in Nigeria, which is also a pointer in the direction that the Africa is gradually embracing improved production practices. So conclusively, in order for pig industry in Africa to be a huge contributor to the African states' pig GDP and the attainment of SDG on zero hunger, as well as poverty eradication, looking at, excuse me, looking at encouraging and supporting smallholder farmers for improved productivity. This is a way forward, as well as carefully planned and executed biosecurity and disease control. It will go a long way to help the situation as against what obtained before. Capacity building in the area of pig production, biosecurity, value addition. And value addition, that is, to say the least, will enhance productivity. There is a need for the sustenance of research efforts in the development of cost-effective feeding, focusing on the use of alternative feed resources, such that in African states, most of the time, especially, let's look at what is currently happening in Nigeria, farmer-other conflict. Nigeria is being looked at as if it's just a cattle producing nation, whereas Nigeria is also topping the table in terms of pig production, but there is no serious effort made by government focusing this area or to improve the productivity or its contribution to the GDP in Nigeria. Same goes for Ghana. Same goes for even Malawi and various other countries other than South Africa. This is not in place in all the African states. And when you go to most of the African states, hardly will you be able to find a processing plant specifically for pig meat processing, which is definitely when you say you want to produce meat to be halal compliant, definitely it's a separate production line from whether beef or chicken or mutton or chivon. So until the various governments focus sufficient attention and to the fact that this particular sector should be grown to contribute significantly, then we are going nowhere. But the coast is clear. I want to thank everybody for the privilege to speak. I want to believe you would have benefited one thing or the other from what I've said. And then it's an opportunity also to see areas where we believe we can focus our attention for those who are probable investors or prospective investors in any of the African states. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Professor ADESHEINWA, for your wealth of knowledge that you tried to share with us. We appreciate, and in fact, as the inaugural speaker of this second series, we thank you very, very much. Before I go further, I would like all those participants who would like to share their contacts, especially your email addresses, you should just put it on the chat so that we can share our next and concurrent activities of webinars.
Hello,
and newsletters.
Tommy, can you please speak up?
Okay. I said that all those participants that are online should try to share with us their email addresses or contact details so that we can share with them newsletters and current issues that are happening, especially the webinars that are coming to follow this initial webinar with us. And then we would like to go to the question part. Do we have questions? Do we have questions for our professor before we call this webinar to an end? Please, either write your question or you ask. We have 15 minutes left, maximum. If there are any questions, please, indicate.
Well,
or write your question. Okay. Please.
Not a question.
Please, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah, just just to commend the speaker, Professor ADESHEINWA, for what has been an interesting presentation today on pig farming in Africa. Perhaps as we are going forward, looking at pig farming, we should also look at concerns, on the fat content of the meat produced by, that's the pork that we have on our tables. So that, if it's become a concern to people who, for their nutritional needs, that we would also work on reducing the, fat content of the meat that could come from pork. That may be a source of concern for some people with regards to, taking up pork. That's fat. I remember during my master's that I worked on pigs using cassava peels, which you talked about now. I was able to produce lean pork, that was, you could hardly identify that is different from any other meat. So not very fatty, pork that we see. People see pork, once you mention pork, it's fat. So that's one thing that we may need to watch out for. Thank you very much. I want to break out at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your comment. What of Prince Manu Bafo? Please unmute and ask your question, please.
All right, thank you very much, and good afternoon, good evening to every one of you. I would like to say thank you very much, Prof, for a very insightful presentations. And you touched on almost, let me say, the most critical aspect of piggery. But I just have a comment, and it's in regards to nutrition aspect of pig farming. So oftentimes we concentrate our attention on feed, but feed in itself is a component of nutrition. And with my little experience working around the sub-region, you realize that even the commercial feed mills, it's difficult to walk into a retail shop or a feed mill and just ask for a number of bags for feed for pigs. That aspect of the industry is quite limited. I personally am struggling to understand why it is so, because if you look at currently the genetics breeding behind pigs, it is very well advanced. So just like the last commenter said, people are concerned about fat, but we have breeds that are so efficient that if you have proper nutrition for them, then the component or the aspect of fat is not there. And so, Prof, I don't know if you have any insights to share with us why the commercial aspect of nutrition for pigs is not really being explored, and we leave it to using the waste most of the times to feed the animals, and that doesn't give the best of results that we want. Thank you very much.
Yeah, just to that the feeding part and the nutritional part of feed is going to come in the fourth webinar, which I presume should be coming up around May. So it's on the line. We're going to talk about the nutritional part, and yeah, there are lots of things to talk about. Yeah, thank you very, very much for your input, please. Thank you so much. Dr. Dennis. Dr. Dennis Ajay, please unmute yourself and ask a question. Thank you. Hello, Dr. Dennis. Okay. Mopelola.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Mopelola Omotosho is my name.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry.
I won't charge you much. I want to thank Prof for his presentation.
He's Tomi Olatunde. Where is it?
Yeah.
Tomi Olatunde, and you are struggling with that name. So I should charge you really.
Please, please.
He's a French Nigerian.
Oh,
He's a
okay,
French Nigerian.
So, well, I want to thank Prof. ADESHEINWA for his presentation. But in my opinion, I think feeding pigs is a very, very big challenge. And the last Prince Manu mentioned the fact that you can't get to pig feeds, as easy as you do for chicken. But I tell you, the cost is unbelievable. And so I think that looking at the feed ingredients for feed for pigs should be on the top burner, because in Nigeria, there was sometimes they brought in some good quality breeds, but they were mismanaged by poor feeding. The cost of feeding is really high, and I think it's an area we need to concentrate on. Well, I'll be on the lookout for, the fourth webinar. But in my opinion, we should start looking at how best we can feed our pigs. And, we need to go back to looking at the feed ingredients that we can actually use to feed pigs. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much, madam. I'm sorry. So, Mr. Tunji Yola, please unmute yourself and comment, please.
Hello, sir. Can I speak now? This is Dennis.
Yeah, okay, please. I called you. Yeah, please go on.
Thank you very much. And thanks for giving me this opportunity. I would like to commend our professor for giving us this insightful presentation. I have a few comments to make. Regarding, in as much as we are encouraging farmers to also go into or keep or raise high producing animals, that is high, those that are giving us in terms of their productivity very high. How do we ensure that we don't wipe off or wipe away our indigenous or our local breeds? How do we ensure that? Because we know the importance of these local indigenous breeds. And if we are to promote or encourage that of the exotic or the foreign breeds, how do we ensure that we don't shift our attention and then it will create a way that will wipe away or wipe off our indigenous breeds? Thank you.
I think Prof is the right person to answer that question, because here, of course, in Europe, what happens is that the local breeds are managed by government institutions and institutes for preservation, and improved breed is used predominantly for food production. So, but I will not deprive Prof of the opportunity to comment on that. Please, Prof, more light in that, please. Hello, Prof.
Am I to take that now?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's okay. Now, I think earlier on, somebody, thank you very much for all the questions or comments. The registrar, Mrs. Omotosho, former president of Animal Science Association of Nigeria, and a renowned quality assurance person when you talk in terms of I will say, with respect to the non-availability of feed for pigs generally, let's say Nigeria, I've seen that also in Ghana, in majority of the African countries. The major problem is the production practices of our farmers. Yes, you still see some of the companies, feed industries, producing sometimes custom
I think that's a connection issue.
The network there is
Yeah,
giving
I think
problem.
the connection issue. Yeah. Okay. We should wait some few maybe to connect.
But you were saying something before. I think you can. If
Yeah.
there
So
is
the nutritional part, before Prof will come back, is going to come up on the 16th of May. That's the next webinar that will treat with sustenance of the pork industry with good quality nutrition, locally sourced feed raw materials. So we're going to be talking on that in full detail and on the 16th of May. So that's when it's programmed. So in the absence, probably Bolani Wa Afolabi, please continue to ask your question. And meanwhile, we hope the Prof will join
Thank
us.
you, sir. Can I be heard?
Yeah, please go on.
Hello?
Yeah,
He's back.
so
You hear me now? Oh,
Yeah. Let's first
Okay.
let Prof finish, please, since he's back.
Okay. So the problem is that the farmers' practice is actually what is dictating the pace. Several feed companies, like efforts that are personally together with some other people champion to encourage some feed companies to produce pig feed. But it is not been embraced. Even when it's supposed to be embraced, farmers will buy a bag of feed and use it as a concentrate, when in actual fact, it's just a feed, not a concentrate. So they will employ this use of local, byproducts. So until we take pig production as a business, when it's taken as a business, and then the kind of animals that you actually rear, it will dictate the type of animal you rear, and then the kind of feed, because you want to have your return on investment. So definitely there are a number of agro-industrial byproducts that can use in the formulation of pig feed at a least cost level that the animal will use, that will bring about what the Registrar of NIAS was speaking to. That's talking of very low fat. When you use this agro-industrial byproduct that is not maize, because of the reduced energy load and a little of fiber, when they are able to utilize the fiber, it brings about reduction in the fat content and increase in laying of the tissue. So let's leave that for the purpose of further discussion. When you also look at how do we ensure that we don't completely erode the local breeds of pigs? Hardly, yes, what is done in Western clime, that is the idea of institutions conserving the gene pool. Nigeria is just signing into the National Strategy and Action Plan on Animal Genetic Resource, such that all the endangered species or all the indigenous species of animal for which Nigerian indigenous pig, NIP, is one, is to conserve them. And what is currently happening in Nigeria, hardly will you be able to bring in exotic breeds of pigs if not for the semen. So it's like you are bringing in 50% now to inseminate the females that are available on your farm, and majorly in the hands of our local pig farmers. We have indigenous breed or their crosses. So actually we still have, and in Nigeria, I must say this, I know the person, Mr. Dennis is asking from Ghana. I don't know, I am familiar with pig production in Ghana, but I'm not familiar with the fact that there are some areas where there are some areas in Nigeria where pigs are grown for certain places where local pigs are used for some socio-cultural reasons. Like you go to some western part of Nigeria, pigs are still sacrificed to some gods. When you go to some southern part of Nigeria and then the northwestern part of Nigeria, there are places when pig is what is accepted as bride price, the indigenous pig, not the exotic. So these animals are still being kept and they are still being grown.
Okay. So we will take the last three interventions, please, because of time. So Miss Bolanwa Afolabi, please you can intervene now, please. Please make it short. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. So in Nigeria now, I'm a new breeder. So I just want to ask shortly, what can we give to pigs in general? They are feeding, and because everybody has their own formulation, but what is the ideal standard to even reduce the fat? Because whatever you impute, that's the altitude you are going to get on the long run when you kill the what's it called, the pig. What are the necessary things if you can, maybe the ingredient, maybe PKC, can Prof give us some certain things, because it has been the business for a very long time. So just to things that someone can give or we can do on our own, because somebody has raised the issue of the feed earlier on too. Thank you, sir.
Okay, before Prof can answer that, can we ask Aptos to us to intervene, please, so that Prof will answer all together. Thank you. Aptos, please.
Good afternoon.
Please, make it short. Make it short.
Yes. My name is Victor Olatunji. So I appreciate the speaker, the lecturer we have today, Professor ADESHEINWA, and our moderator, Mr. Tomi Olatunde, for this wonderful session. Let me say opinion or suggestion with what I've had, with what I've experienced in pig sector, is we are having complexity to differentiate between our local breeds, the hybrids, and the exotics. And this is from what the lecturer has given to us about record keeping. We don't actually have record keeping about nursing this animal, just like the way we have in the poultry, noiler, broiler, and the layers. So we don't have it. And this has been a major issue and is affecting feed formulation to pigs generally, because we can't design a feed for layer and it will be suitable for broiler. And the fact is that we don't understand or can identify the true genetic identity of this pig. I also want to raise the question, but someone has already asked, which is about pig depositing fat. And in my own little experience of practice, what I've realized is that when pigs develop fat, it's just as if the pig doesn't have the capacity to have this marble meat on the feed nutrition that is being given to such pig. And that pig, in my own view, I can just classify them to either be hybrid or our general breed. It's just like feeding a local pigs with broiler starter. So there is no how such chicken won't develop excessive fat. And that is just what I see to that angle. I really appreciate this session.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
For more awareness on pig management.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Victor. Yeah, now can we go to Mr. Tunji Iola? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Like you said, my name is Tunji Iola. Prof, thank you for the very deep presentation and then connecting with everywhere in Africa, giving us data on pig production. Thank you so much, Prof, for that. My question is basically on in relation with the climate and the ASF, the African swine fever. Last year, 2024, NIMET predicted little dry season in some part of Nigeria that I actually worked with you on. And then part of the predictions was that, okay, the little dry season comes with some lower temperature in the southwest. And there was no there is no there is no research that pinned that little dry season to African swine fever, but our scientists at the NIMET, they were thinking, their thought was that the little dry season is connected to most times whenever there is a little dry season, that's when African swine fever is also reported. Prof, I want you to help me expatiate on this so that we will be able to come clear in terms of the climate and the African swine fever and maybe some other diseases also. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much. Prof, before you answer these questions, I would like to say something about what Mr. Victor, if I'm not mistaken, said earlier on. I would like to advise people to buy animals from secured sources. Okay, because those animals that you buy from secured sources, you can have good production efficiency with them. All right, so look around to find and buy animals of good genetic value and do your piggery business. Yeah, thank you very much. Prof, please answer the questions. If you don't, please. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you,
Toby.
sir.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
I will say, talking about, you see, talking about the pig, one thing that we need to look at in the Western climate, that is in other climes where pig production is taken as a business, improved breeds are reared. And when you have improved breeds, just like our colleague was mentioning, Noila, or if you say a particular chicken strain or hybrid, you will discover that they will be introduced with their feeding package, their vaccination package, and everything. Same goes for these exotic pigs. They come with their feeding regime. And like somebody also, whether it was also the person that requested for a feed formula for particular pigs.
Yeah.
There are known proven requirements. There is the energy requirement for starter pig, winner pig, grower pig, finisher pig, lactating pig, gestating pig, different levels. But what is I say everything is hinged on our production system. The pig production, with Nigeria topping the list in Africa, with Malawi following, I have gone around these countries, even these two, mine and this other one, and many other ones. What you see, pig production is actually in the hands of people that are not too literate. That's one. Even when they are literate, they go into the business without sourcing for the required information. And you know the general saying of garbage in, garbage out. You just see any animal, you don't know what it has, what the traits are, you buy. You say you want to produce for instance, if you use local pigs, Nigerian indigenous pig, there is no way you say you want to go into fattening program. The matured weight is about 60 or 70 at most. So how do you want to feed such an animal to clock 150 or 200 kg? That there is nothing. When you also look at our feeding, like I said earlier on, when you give a pig, a winner pig, you give a winner pig, pig casey, palm kernel cake, that the fiber content could be as high as 30%. Spent grain, the fiber content will be more than 30%. and you want this winner pig or growing pig, for a pig to be able to digest fiber, it must have a grown cecum. Oh, if the cecum is not
proper,
developed,
and I want to listen to his response.
It cannot manage fiber, not to talk of digest it. It is only in the adult pig that you can feed some level of fiber, but in a winner pig, the fiber content must not be more than 5. Grower pig, at most 7%. But here we are. You are now giving cassava peel or spent grain, or you are singly an ingredient that is supposed to be used in formulating a diet. What is the protein requirement for winners? You are looking at something in the region of not less than 20%. That's even talking of crude, 22, 24. But here we are. You are now feeding that animal with pig acid that has 17 or 18% that is not even available because of the fiber content. And you say you want the animal to grow. So then that's why you see your animal, you say you are feeding, the animal will stay 1.5 years before it can attain 70 kilo. When the animal should be clocking 70 kilo in less than 5 months. So we must change our production practices. Identify the right breed, which can be sourced. If it's a cross between local and exotic, there are formulations that could adequately make these animals to grow to reach the market weight at a reasonable time that will give you the return on business, on investment. Then looking at ASF as a disease, I've spoken to, thank you very much, Professor Yola Tuji. ASF is a disease for now that over time, all the vaccines that have been tested around, none has been found. Yes, there is one that is still ongoing with the test in Vietnam. It's already brought to Nigeria. There is no valid record that it's been proven to do what it's expected to do. There has been conflicting reports. Having said that, when you look at ASF as a disease, transmissible disease, it's a disease by contact. Yes, during the dry season, which you are looking at the effect of climate change, for instance, what you can say is if ASF is in a particular location, if there is no physical contact, there are farms in Nigeria as of today that has never witnessed ASF. If farms where it has happened, no contact, nothing whatsoever. But if it's in close proximity, birds could fly. If it's a distance where birds could fly from where manure or pigs that has been not buried, even dumped on a site, that died as a result of ASF. There is this white-colored birds now. It will fly. By the time it's going to another location, it's moving in, whether you call it rat, you call it lizard, then exchange of equipment, farm clothes, or your staff going from your farm to another farm to work in another farm or to conduct and whatever. So it is not about the climate change. Yes, there are conditions that could be favorable to it. But if the biosecurity measures, a farm must be enclosed. A farm, you are moving in, you must be biosecured before coming in. You must be biosecured when going out. So you are not bringing disease in and you are not taking it out. Take, for instance, you are going to Europe today, or you are going to America. They have different conditions. You can travel to United Kingdom today. You want to visit a farm. The first 7 days, you may not be allowed to even leave your hotel. Talk less of moving near the office premises of the farm you want to visit. So these are some things that we don't, there are no conditions that we meet up with. It's garbage in, garbage out. So if we follow, there are conditions. You want to you want to fatten pigs, or you want to run a breeder stock, or you want to go into whatever enterprise, because there are different enterprises in the pig value chain that you can go into. But this idea of modeling different kinds of practices, and we believe we should get the best out of it. I think until we embrace the right thing to do, then it is only then we can have a good return on investment and we can get to where we are going to. And particularly for those countries that are already on the top list, whether of pig production, pig population or pork production, for them to sustain that level, the farmers, the practitioners must improve on their production, on their biosecurity measures and then production systems. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof, for your answers and for generally your presentation of today. I think with that, we have to end this today's webinar. Until next time, which is going to be the second webinar, where our topic will have to deal with infrastructure, waste management, how it affects African swine fever. By the way, I would like to say at this time that the spreading of African swine fever, from my experience, even here in Europe, has to do around the human factor. Okay, having said that, I will say we call it a day. And yeah, thank you everybody for coming along, and hope to see you next time. For those who have left your email addresses, we are going to send you messages, emails reflecting where you can see this video. All right, and also we will send invitations to you via email for the next webinar. Thank you very much, and I wish everybody a nice evening. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
very
Prof.
much. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
We have enjoyed you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And
it's
Tony,
us.
you better
Thank
start
you.
learning how to speak Nigeria now. You have been long in this corridor that we should expect you to pronounce our name more
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
That's
Sometimes
all right.
when I come home, it's I really get to be part of it. But when I go again,
No
it's
problem. Yeah, it's a different ball game. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
My